What's up, YouTube? I am the Vanilla Nerd, and today I want to do something a little unique and just talk about the 4 superhero movies that came out in 2025, talk about the state of superhero movies, and my hope for the future. So yeah, it'll be a lot of kind of oddball but interrelated things I'll be talking about, and look forward to discussing it. But I do want to give spoilers for the 4 superhero movies that came out this year, namely Captain America, Brave New World, Thunderbolts, Superman, and Fantastic Four: First Steps. Let's get into it. Now, I will be ranking all 4 of these movies in a bit, but I just want to say how grateful I am that 2025 was such a good year for superhero movies. I mean, 3 out of the 4 films that came out, I think were all phenomenal and really fun films that were absolutely worth going and seeing in the theaters. Now, the one oddball being Captain America: Brave New World, but even that one I don't regret seeing because A, I'm a Captain America fan, and B, I'm an MCU fan, so I was glad to get the situational awareness, if nothing else, from that film, even if I acknowledge that a lot of people didn't go see that film, and a lot of people were right not to go see that film because it really wasn't anything super special. I mean, it was cool to see the Red Hulk out and go on a rampage. That was kind of cool, but besides that main action scene and a few others, it was kind of a meh movie. And yeah, anywho, that one very clearly goes at the bottom of the list. But the other 3 are all really, really good films, and that's what I want to talk about today. Because it is so gratifying as a superhero nerd and a movie nerd, right, to have 3 amazing superhero movies come out this year, where instead of asking the question which one isn't absolute trash, I am now asking the question which one did it best. Like, between Superman, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four, it's a pretty big toss-up which one I like more or less. And even though I do have my preferences, and we'll get to those here in a second, I want to say that I think there isn't a wide margin in quality between one or the other. And that could be good or bad, but what I'm trying to say is they're all really good, right? And that is just so rewarding because I remember the past couple of years where superhero movies specifically weren't guaranteed to have that kind of quality and that level of success. Let's just look back at the past 2 years, right? 2 years ago, in 2023, we had a whopping 8 superhero movies get released. And out of those 8, only 2 of them were really good. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was beloved by most people. I personally did not enjoy it. That's why I have the kind of the crossing arms emoji. It wasn't for me. I also heard that some people enjoyed Blue Beetle, but again, that one wasn't for me. I think it has a lot of problems. But outside of that, that means you've got 5 other movies that are all unilaterally considered pretty bad. I mean, Aquaman 2 was all right, but it wasn't able to really recapture the success of the first one. The Flash, I enjoyed, but it had the whole controversy surrounding Ezra Miller, which was kind of distasteful. But ultimately, all of the DC projects have sort of the lame duck approach of none of this is going to matter in a few years because the DC universe we all knew was getting reset with the hiring of James Gunn and Peter Safran to lead the DC universe moving forward, and the announcement that Superman was going to be the next movie, which we'll talk about here in a second. In 2024, we see the results of the poor showing of superhero movies in 2023. DC pulled all the way back. They released no movies except for The Joker, which was always going to be separate and away apart from the main universe reboot that James Gunn is trying to do. Sony released 3 movies, but none of them were memorable. Not that I've seen all of them. I haven't seen Venom or Craven. Don't really care to. And then Deadpool and Wolverine was the one shining bright spot. The MCU pulled back. It released 3 movies in 2023, released only 1 movie this year, which is a first in a long, long time. But I think that was good for the MCU. I think it was good to kind of pull back, to kind of reset. And it was a big win. Now, I have not seen Deadpool and Wolverine. It's not my kind of movie. It's a bit too graphic and a bit too swear-heavy for me, my taste, but that's beside the point. Point is, it was a success. And the question you have to ask yourself is this a sign that the MCU is changing for the better, or is this just a fluke because everyone was excited to see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine share the screen with Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, 2 of the greatest takes on comic book characters ever put to screen? That's the big question that 2025, I think, can answer. Because in 2025, the MCU released 3 movies, and all of them seem to be better quality than what we got in 2023, with the exception of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Right? But even Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I enjoyed Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four more than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. At least me personally. I'm sure not everyone feels the same way, and probably most people don't. But that's my opinion on the matter. And the real thing I'm trying to get at, though, is that I do think that the MCU is moving in a direction where they are trying to prioritize quality over quantity. And that's what I like about 2025. And that's kind of what I want to say about 2025 in general, is that they really are... superhero movies are getting better. For the longest time, we've been complaining it's not superhero fatigue, it's just bad, poorly written movies and poorly made movies. And now in 2025, we kind of get a chance to prove it, where it's like, hey, you make 3 really good, well-made movies, and we go and we enjoy these more. I know the box office numbers don't exactly represent that or reflect that, but I think both DC and the MCU have done such a bad job at tarnishing their own names and making their reputations really bad that it's going to take some time for us to trust that the next superhero movie is going to be enjoyable and entertaining and stuff. For my money, I am sold at this point. Having watched Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four and Superman, I'm excited for everything that DC and Marvel is going to do moving forward. They have gained my trust. I believe that they can tell good stories moving forward. And that's what I love about 2025, is that I have more hope. Now, the big question for 2025 is, which movie did the best? Which superhero movie do I like the most out of the lineup that we got? And I'm excited to talk about that. But first, let's acknowledge the worst, because it's pretty obvious Captain America Brave New World isn't that great. Look, I want to like Captain America Brave New World. I want to like Captain America because he's my favorite superhero, and I like the decision to make Sam Wilson the new Captain America. I think the wings and the shield can work and provide some unique action scenes and stuff, and I think Sam Wilson can be a compelling character. But unfortunately, it just did not come through this movie, and that's really, really sad. Plus, on top of everything else, Captain America Brave New World felt like a thinly veiled sequel to The Incredible Hulk, which makes not a whole ton of sense considering the fact that the Hulk wasn't even in this movie, nor was She-Hulk, which I think could have saved the movie or made it a little bit better. Not that I love the She-Hulk show, but just that I think her character could have connected the threads a little bit more and made it a little bit more cohesive. But regardless, Captain America Brave New World very much felt like a holdover from the old MCU, where they were just trying to put out content, and they did extensive reshoots and extensive changes to the story just so that they could produce something that was slightly better quality than what we were used to getting. And I'll say it worked, because I enjoyed Brave New World way more than I enjoyed Quantumania or The Marvels. It was a much better movie than either of those films. Maybe not a crazy good movie altogether, but it was better than those two movies back in 2023. So they're at least trying to move in the right direction, right? But Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four First Steps are where we really start to see the MCU's shift and change and uptick in quality and improvement, right? Because the Thunderbolts felt like a movie that could absolutely fit right in with the first 3 phases of the MCU. It had the quippy humor, it had the fun action scenes, it had superheroes fighting superheroes. It was great. I love the Thunderbolts. It's so, so good. And Fantastic Four is right up there with the Thunderbolts. That movie felt like a very big departure from the mainline MCU, but in a good way, right? It felt like a Doctor Strange or a Guardians of the Galaxy of the original first 3 phases of the MCU. It opened up this whole new world, literally, to the MCU, because they were on a completely different world, 838, but also just kind of opened up this whole new world of superhero storytelling of these space faring adventurers who also happen to be superheroes, which felt distinctly different from the Thunderbolts, from the mainline MCU story. And that just breathes new life into the franchise, and I think works really well because, like Doctor Strange, like the Guardians of the Galaxy, it gave audiences something different to enjoy and to be entertained by. And so that's why I love the Fantastic Four First Steps. So, if I had to choose between the two, I would choose Thunderbolts over Fantastic Four. I think when these movies first came out, the consensus was Fantastic Four was slightly better, but after letting the movies sit with me and having seen both of them a couple times now, I enjoy the Thunderbolts way more than I enjoy Fantastic Four. I think the Thunderbolts is funnier, I think the action is more entertaining, and there's just more action in general, and I just overall enjoyed the movie watching experience of the Thunderbolts more than I enjoyed Fantastic Four. I think had Fantastic Four had one opening action scene where they're like fighting a couple of their lower earthbound villains, I think that movie might have eked out the win. It might have been a better movie overall, but it didn't, and it's just lacking that extra oomph to bring it over the finish line and to have it beat out Thunderbolts. So in my opinion, I think Thunderbolts is better than Fantastic Four. So in terms of MCU, it goes Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, and Captain America Brave New World for 2025. But that leads us with the big question of, where does Superman fall? Because Superman was a very exciting movie on a number of levels. One, we were rebooting Superman, the character, and I was excited to see how he was going to, how this version was going to be portrayed and stuff. But two, it was really setting a new tone for the future of the DC Universe. This was the first movie coming out for DC. They had some other projects for the DCU at large that had come out earlier or previous or whatever, but this movie was really what was going to be most people's first introduction to the new DCU, and certainly it was for me. And so there was a lot of questions. Was this going to be good? How did they do that? How do they set up the universe and all of that? And I'm going to get into those questions in the weeds in my review of Superman, which I will do very shortly. I have recently rewatched it, and I'm very excited and very glad that I did rewatch it. But in talking about Superman, in short, I think it knocked it out of the park. I think they did a fantastic job. I think they set up the character of Superman perfectly. I know who he is. I know why he is. I know how he differs from other characters and what makes him special and unique. I know how powerful he is. They definitely depowered him for this universe, but I think that's smart to make the universe feel more real or more believable and just work better all around. But ultimately, I think the thing with Superman was that on top of just setting up the character well, they also set up the universe really well, because they introduced the Justice Gang, they introduced the Daily Planet, and they did really good castings across the board for all of those characters involved and for everyone. And so it was really impressive to me just how well they were able to capture the heart of the DC universe, and it makes me excited for the future of DC movies moving forward, which is absolutely what it needed to do. So, without further ado, in my opinion, I think Superman was the best superhero movie of 2025. I don't think that's a very hot take. I think many people agree this one was the clear winner over all these, but I do think it's a close second to is Thunderbolts. I think Thunderbolts was a really, really good movie, and I really enjoyed it. And I really liked it, especially how it harkened back to that old MCU style that I loved. So I really like both movies, but I guess I'm just going to give Superman the win because he's a slightly more prominent character, and I think the superhero action was a little bit more fun in Superman than it was in Thunderbolts. Plus, as a longtime DC fan, I'm just glad to see DC getting some much needed love and a really good movie out of its lineup, as opposed to the kind of mediocrity that we've been forced to suffer through for the last couple of years of the Snyderverse or so. So yeah. Hello, this is Editing Vanilla Nerd. I do want to take a quick second to say I do not hate the Snyderverse. I think there were some good movies that came out of it, namely Man of Steel, Wonder Woman #1, and Aquaman 1 were all good movies. But even those movies had their issues, and I think the Snyderverse in general was just very mediocre and very weird takes on a lot of the characters. They did not have the greatest adaptations from comic book to screen, which is unfortunate. But I do acknowledge they had some good stuff there. I'm honestly very grateful that we rebooted and we're moving in a new direction now and kind of wiping the slate clean. So yeah, don't hate the Snyderverse, but I don't love it. So anyway, take that for what you will. Now, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that the box office numbers for these movies do not necessarily reflect all the good things I've been saying about these films, which is unfortunate. But I don't entirely blame the movies. I mean, looking at this list, none of them broke 700 million. And for reference, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 broke 800 million, which is to say nothing of Phase 3 of the MCU, where movies were consistently breaking $1 billion with almost every single release, which is very impressive. But again, I don't blame these movies entirely. For one, their parent companies, Marvel Studios and DC, have respectively done a lot to tarnish their own reputation. DC has put out a lot of mediocre superhero films, and Marvel has been doing the same. So it's going to take some time for audiences to warm back up to these universes and to trust and believe that they're going to produce really good quality films. And yeah, that's not on these films all that much. Also, it's no secret that theater culture has changed dramatically. I mean, ever since the pandemic and the rise of streaming services, a lot of people realize I can just wait for this movie to come out on a streaming service, which I already pay for, rather than having to go to the movies, pay for it, and see it. That being said, these movies did everything they could because I think they produced really good quality films to encourage people to go to the theaters anyways. They aren't perfect films, none of them are, but they did a really good job. And I really like the slate of 2025 movies, even if their box office numbers don't exactly reflect it. I think this is a really good first step in the right direction, especially considering the absolutely abysmal box office numbers of 2024 and 2023 before this. So, in conclusion, I think 3 out of the 4 movies that came out in 2025 were absolutely phenomenal. I think they did a really good job getting me excited for the future of these superhero universes. Superman set a fantastic foundation for the future of the DC universe. It set a good tone and quality for what we can expect moving forward. I know not every movie is going to follow the same tone and feel as the Superman movie, but that's okay. It just sets a good example for what we can kind of expect moving forward, at least from the mainline DC projects. And I think that's very exciting. And then on the MCU side, we've got Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, which absolutely proved to me that the MCU is trying to promote quality over quantity. Both of those movies are flawed. They aren't perfect, but they are really good and much better than what we have been getting, and I really appreciate that about the MCU. And it proves that the Deadpool and Wolverine movie wasn't just a fluke. I mean, it was in a lot of ways, but it also was a beginning of change for the MCU on the whole, and that's really exciting. And so I am really excited for both Supergirl and Doomsday, which are coming out next year. They're the big 2 prominent superhero movies, and I think they're both going to be really fun and really, really good for both of these respective universes. And that makes me excited because it feels like it's been 5+ years since I've been excited about DC or Marvel projects in general. And that's why I think 2025 was a resounding success for superhero movies.